The LinkedIn Podcast Network is sponsored by Oracle. AI may be the most important new computer technology ever. Do more and spend less like some of the world's most successful companies. Take a free test drive of OCI at oracle.com/LinkedIn Podcast Network.
LinkedIn presents.
Hi, everyone. It's Monday. I'm your host, Michael Kovnat, and this is the Next Big Idea Daily, the show that gives you quick insights from the latest nonfiction books, making it effortless for you to get smarter while sipping your morning coffee. Just make sure you click follow in your podcast player to get our future episodes and sign up for our Book of the Day newsletter using the link in the episode notes. So I don't know what kind of job you do, but in most professions, if you want to get a promotion or a raise, you first got to get the attention of your superiors. So how do you do it? How do you get noticed at work? For some people, it's easy. If you're the brash, outspoken type, you just make yourself heard at meetings, brag about your accomplishments. Basically, just let your boss know how awesome you are. But what do you do if by nature or by culture, you're a quieter, more modest person? Well, people like us also have tools we can use, according to Jessica Chen, author of the new book, Smart, Not Loud: How to Get Noticed at Work for All the Right Reasons. Jessica is an Emmy-winning journalist and CEO of Soulcast Media, a business communication training agency. Here she is to share some of her big ideas.
I start off the book addressing why it can sometimes be hard for us to talk about ourselves at work, including asking for what we want and sharing the amazing work we do. Now, there are many reasons why it can be hard, such as who might be in the room, how confident we feel about our idea, and many other reasons. But the one reason I focus on in Smart Not Loud is this paradox of being raised to practice what I call quiet culture traits while working in an environment where loud culture traits are expected. And what I mean by traits in this context are traits we have been taught to embody in our younger years, such as when we were children. So quiet culture traits are things like practicing modesty and humility, listening more than speaking, putting your head down and just working hard, and avoiding all conflict to maintain a harmonious environment. Personally, this was what I was taught growing up in a fairly conservative home. However, when I started working, I saw many of the traits needed to stay top of mind required something completely different. It's what I call loud culture traits, such as being able to talk about your wins and do it with confidence, not being afraid to speak up in meetings and even challenge others, and prioritizing networking and socializing as well as doing the work. Now, in the book, I talk about for those of us who grew up being told to embody quiet culture traits at home, well, the ability to showcase ourselves, advocate for our ideas, especially in a fast-paced corporate and competitive environment, it can feel much harder. Now, I want to be clear. One is not better than the other, and this is way more than being an introvert or an extrovert. It's also not being loud or quiet in that auditory sense. It goes much deeper than that. So now that we know what quiet culture and loud culture traits are, the question is, how do we find that balance so we can still show up at work in a way that feels authentic to us? There's no question about it. We have to put ourselves out there in order for us to be top of mind. So there are 4 cultural reframes that I found can help us with that. And it's first, how we engage with others at work. In other words, our communication skills. The way to think about this is to always think about this one thing: your audience. When engaging with others, whether it's giving a presentation, speaking on the spot, or answering a tricky question, you're not brain dumping everything you know. It's thinking about who you're talking to, what they care about, and tailoring your message so it resonates. The next reframe is how do you talk about your wins? Because if you do good work, which you absolutely do, you've got to talk about it. You can't expect people to know about it because, well, they're busy too. But I know for us quiet culture folks, it can be awkward putting the spotlight on ourselves. So the way to think about it is leading with how your work and your accomplishments has benefited the team, the organization, such as did it drive something forward? Did it help make a process easier? Whatever it is, start with that because I have found this can get people excited about what you're doing. The next is managing conflict. Now, I can't sugarcoat it. Dealing with tricky conversations when things go wrong, such as a missed deadline, an unhappy client, or an error on a project, talking about any of those things can make us nervous. However, the key to getting noticed for all the right reasons isn't to hide, it's actually to focus on what I call the dynamics at play. And what I love about this reframe is it's a strategic way of approaching problems where you're asking yourself, okay, what happened here? When did things go wrong? What potential solutions have I come up with? Switching our approach to asking these questions can give us a holistic view of how to manage conflict when it happens. And the fourth reframe, it's spend time. Now, for those of us who grew up embodying quiet culture traits, I think sometimes our default is to just put our heads down and work hard and not cause waves. But here's the thing. Just because you're smart, it doesn't mean promotions will automatically follow. Just because you work hard, it doesn't mean people will automatically notice. In fact, a more strategic way of approaching how we spend time at work is to identify and prioritize quality work over quantity work. That means knowing what work will help us advance our career. What projects can we get on so that we can hone a particular skill? What do we want to be known for? And it's not just about doing work and piling on more work. It's about using the work that we do to build a career brand we're proud of. Right now, what often can happen is you may get assigned work because it's part of your job. You do it well because you're hardworking, you're smart, and you're reliable. But before you know it, because you're so good at doing that one job, you become that go-to person where all this kind of work gets assigned to you. Now, this isn't a problem if it's actually something you want to do and it's something you enjoy. But if it's not, then you've got to be careful with the projects you take on. In order to do that, you have to think about shaping your career brand. In Smart Not Loud, I lay out 4 steps for how you can start shaping your career brand, and I'll go through each step here. The first one to shaping your career brand is you have to start by getting crystal clear on your core values. This means answering questions like, what are you motivated by? What do you find meaningful and fulfilling? As author Brené Brown says, our values should be so crystallized in our minds, so infallible, so precise and clear and unassailable. They don't feel like a choice. They are simply a definition of who we are in our lives. Once you've identified your core values, you've got to find what I call your differentiating factor. The way I like to think about this is what comes easy to you and is something you enjoy doing, that is your differentiating factor. It's also talent. Your talent is unique to you and it's your superpower because it's not something anyone can take away. You love the work, you enjoy it, and it comes easy to you. Which goes into the third point, and that is linking your talent to opportunity. This is an important one because opportunities is how you can start carving out work that'll help you get noticed for how you want to be noticed. But here's the thing. Sometimes these opportunities will already be there and you just got to raise your hand to be a part of it. But sometimes you have to create and pitch a project that leverages your talent. Whatever it is, you've got to do it in order to shape your career brand because consistency in doing the work is what'll keep you top of mind. And then finally, expanding your reach. I like to think of shaping your career brand as a flywheel. The more strategic you are with what you want to be known for, getting on projects that excite you, and staying consistent with it, that'll expand your reach. Because ultimately, if you have a career brand and you're consistent with it, you'll be that go to person for all kinds of projects and initiatives that you want to do. And the best part about it all, you can start shaping your career brand anytime, including right now. The way I like to think about advocating for yourself is when you look around at your friends, your family, the community you're a part of, people who you genuinely care about. You advocate for them and you stand up for them because you care about them. Similarly, I think we need to apply this same mindset in the work we do. We advocate for ourselves because we care about the work. But I know it can be hard, which is why in this chapter, I share how there are 4 things we can do to better advocate. And I break it down into a simple acronym called ACCT, which is ACT. If we advocate for ourselves, we've got to act. And I'm going to share what ACCT stands for and how you can apply it in your everyday work. The A is asking for what you want. Now, the reality is most of the time we have to ask for what we want. We can't assume things are going to be handed to us despite how hard we work, or assume that people are thinking of us. If we see something we want and we know it can accelerate our career, we've got to get good at asking for it. The second is C, and that means circle back. Because the truth is, asking for what you want is just the first step. It's essentially you planting that seed. But most of the time, you've got to follow up and circle back in order to stay top of mind because many times people are busy. They need that gentle reminder. And think about it this way. Plan to say it twice, literally and figuratively. The third is the second C, and that is celebrate your wins. When you do good work, be sure to talk about it. And it doesn't have to be in a boisterous or look at me kind of way. It can be very subtle, very simple, where let's say a client or somebody says, "Hey, great job." You forward that message to your manager with a simple FYI or check this out. Sometimes that's all you need to do to celebrate your wins and ensure other people know about it. And finally, the T. This one means turning down requests. Here's the thing, our time at work is limited. We only have a certain amount of hours every day to do the work we have to do. And if we say yes to too many things and we take on too much, ultimately, we will be taking time away from the things that we actually want to do. Turning down requests and doing it judiciously and with tact is how you can make sure you're advocating for yourself and protecting yourself in the workplace. So remember, advocating for yourself is being able to act at work. How to chime in during meetings. This is where we get really tactical and smart, not loud, where I share communication tips, including what you can say and how you can say it. With this insight, I want to share a specific framework, which is what I call the 4A sequence. And this is helpful for those who might struggle with speaking up in meetings when there are many people around, loud colleagues, and senior leaders, making it hard for you to know when and how to chime in. So the first A stands for active listening. This one is simple because you are actively listening so that you can identify that perfect moment to chime in. Now, the opposite of active listening is passive listening, where you're just sitting back and listening without the intent to speak. To find the right moment to chime in, you have to listen to key words, that slight pause, or that moment where you know it's time to say something. The second A is acknowledge. So once you find that moment to chime in, The first few words you say is to acknowledge the person who just spoke. This is strategic because when we chime in, the person won't feel like we're trying to cut them off. Acknowledging can be as simple as saying, Jessica, that was a really interesting point, and it made me think of ABC. Now, I want to say acknowledging is not agreeing. It's simply making the other person feel heard. The third A is anchor, which means identifying one or two words the person said right before you as a way to connect what you want to say to that. For example, if they said the word market, you now want to repeat that word, market, in your sentence. Or if they said data, you want to say data and then share what you want to say. This is how you can connect both your points together. The fourth A is answer. You answer by making the point you want to share. Now, here's the thing. You got to be succinct and clear. Don't be long-winded, but simply answer this question. What's the point I want to make? And stick with it. Thinking about the 4A sequence is a very strategic way of speaking up in a meeting so that you can ensure other people hear what you're saying, and it can also create an environment where dialogue flows easily.
All right. Thank you, Jessica. Everyone, that's our show for today. Remember, you can get a copy of Smart Not Loud at your favorite bookstore and find out more about what we have to offer over at nextbigideaclub.com. And if you like what you see, you can use the code DAILY for a special discount. That's nextbigideaclub.com and use the code DAILY. I'm Michael Kovnat. See you tomorrow.